This is Authentic Analysis with AI
and Kay,
where we'll be discussing the most controversial crime cases from across the globe,
as well as other important topics. Please remember to like, comment and subscribe.
So today we're going to be talking about Harold Shipman, otherwise known as Dr. Death, who was convicted of killing over 15 victims. Harold apparently killed over 250 victims. I'm going to read some of the names that he was actually convicted of killing. Marie West was 81. Irene Turner was 67. Lizzie Adams was 77. Jean Lilly was 59. Ivy Lomas, who was 63. Muriel Grimshaw, who was 76. Marie Quinn, who was 67. Kathleen Wagstaff, who was 81. Bianca Pomfret, who was 49. Nora Nuttall, who was 64. Pamela Hillier, who was 68. Maureen Ward, who was 57. Winifred Meller, who was 73. And Joan Melia, who was 73. And Kathleen Grundy, who was 81.
So the number of victims that he has seems to differ in depends on what you're reading. So you can go on YouTube and there's a movie about him called Dr. Death. So an hour and 38 minutes. It's quite interesting seeing it. What Shipman was like, and there's about probably 2 or 3 documentaries and an interview with him. One YouTube video, I guess a documentary about him, says he has over 350 patients. I don't really know where they got the number from, but
Victims.
350 victims. So yeah, the number of victims that he has does vary, but either way, it's still a lot.
Yeah, I think he had so many people in his care that it could have been a vast number. So I think that's where that difference in numbers come from.
Yeah, so 80% of Shipman's victims were elderly women. His youngest victim was apparently a 41-year-old man. There were suspicions that he had killed patients as young as 4, basically.
So all these murders took place in Hyde, which is in Manchester, and where Harold Shipman was a practitioner.
He studied medicine at the Leeds School of Medicine, and he graduated in 1970. He began working at a general infirmary, sorry about if I'm pronouncing the names of the counties wrong, in Pontefract in West Riding of Yorkshire. In 1974 he took his first position as a GP in Toad Morden in, 1974, so yeah, he got graduated, and I guess he started working within 4 years of graduating. So a year after he was working as a GP in 1975, he was basically caught forging prescriptions for pethidine, Demerol, I guess that's the name, the brand name for what he was forging. It's a synthetic opioid pain medication used for anesthesia, and he was basically using it for himself. And after he was caught, he was basically fined £600, and he was sent to drug rehabilitation, and he was basically allowed to continue practicing as a GP, which he done in 1977. So are you shocked about the repercussion that he got for forging medication, or do you think it was fair?
I'm shocked because, you can't have paedophiles working in schools. Can you really have a drug addict working in a hospital or in a medical scenario? I just think a lot more scrutiny should have been put on him, even for his own sake, but also mainly for his patients and potential patients who quite clearly turned into victims. So yeah, I just think, I feel like they neglected the gravity of the situation, to be honest.
Also, I'm not sure if you had to retake any tests or anything to continue practicing being a practicing, or had to continue being a general practitioner, I should say. So, if anyone knows if he did or didn't, but he just basically seems to say that he, done his drug rehabilitation, and like 3 years later, 3 years later, he was able to continue working as a GP in the Donnybrook Medical Centre in Hyde near Manchester. And he continued working there throughout the 80s. So, I mean, obviously, probably from this experience or this happening, they've probably, been more harsher and more stricter. But, it's like if you work in a bank and you do fraud, then I'm pretty sure they're not going to let you work there.
Exactly.
Or, you commit murder, they're not going to really let you work in a prison. So,
yeah.
I don't know who dropped the ball there, but I think in this case of Shipman, the ball was dropped a few times, or I don't know if it was not taken serious, but for one GP and to have that many people down in this care, that's not normal.
Mm-hmm. And then when you say they dropped the ball, the police dropped the ball. I know we're jumping ahead a little bit, but when the investigation was launched, he ended up killing 3 more people, or several more people. We don't know how many, but we know that he was convicted of killing 3 more people after the.
And he's not even like he moved from town to town to town. He stayed in that one place. Shipman had his own surgery at 21 Market Street in 1993, become a respected member of the community. So that's when he had his own
surgery.
In 1993. So I think that's when you watch the YouTube, or when you go into YouTube and you watch the movie Dr. Death about Shipman, that's where basically most of the they basically focus his life around him being in that surgery.
A practitioner became concerned about the amount of cremations that they had to co-sign.
Sorry, was it a practitioner or was it the lady that was working at the funeral parlour?
No, it was a practitioner.
Oh, okay.
The Pollard woman was a different woman. She also got consent. A practitioner in the local area of Hyde was concerned about the amount of cremations that they had to co-sign. So you can't just decide that someone's going to get cremated. Another practitioner has to co-sign it. A person called Debbie Bambrough, who worked for the Undertakers, Frank Massey and Son, was also concerned about the number of funerals that they had to undertake. No pun intended. She noticed a pattern in the victims. They were fully dressed. Some of them had just come back from shopping, and then a lot of them were dying in their night clothes, and she thought that was strange. So she reported that to the police.
When Shipman was committing his murders, do you think he was thinking about how it would look to other people, or you think he was just, because he's a GP, people don't suspect him?
I think he did get complacent. He was only covering his tracks loosely, not. I think he was just assuming that that he wouldn't be detected. I think. Yeah.
Well, I don't know if you watched the movie about him, the Dr. Death, but when the character that portrayed him, I don't know how realistic it is to Dr. Shipman, but it came across as Shipman being, I know it could be dramatised and they exaggerate his character, but it kind of showed him to be slightly cocky. Like if anyone tried to, I guess, counteract him or argue that something didn't seem right, he seemed to he didn't really seem to be, as a sympathetic person. He seemed to just be like, well, I'm the doctor, I know what I'm talking about, I know what I'm doing. And I don't know if that's what, well, I guess I don't know if that character, that portrayal of him was accurate, but it could be, he was quite confident in what he was saying, or people really did respect him and they thought it was a genuine, mishap.
He was liked amongst the old people, the elderly that he cared for. I mean, the ones that he didn't murder. He was a popular person in the town. He was a nice person. That's what it was reported, that he was nice. Obviously, how nice can you be if you're a murderer of people? But people liked him. He was a likable person. And I think you're right about I think the portrayal was quite accurate, because I saw a police interview of the actual Harold Shipman, and he did seem very cocky, and I think he displayed some of the traits of a serial killer, in that he had a real big ego. Like, he was really egotistical.
Like, how dare you that you have me in this police station, like,
Yeah.
even though you know you're wrong.
Yeah.
And they have all this evidence. He was saying he was not guilty, and once the police had, picked up the investigation and started, making movements, I guess,
Yeah.
they looked into his computer
Yeah.
and saw that the records of his patients, or his victims, were being altered to fit the narrative of when they died, and so on and so forth. So either he thought that the police weren't able to see that he adjusted them. So I don't know if
Yeah, sorry, I was just going to say, so I don't think that he knew enough about computers to know that if he altered the record, despite the fact that the record's changed on the main page, there's something inside the computer program that registered
the
original and when it was changed. So he didn't realise that, and he was tripping himself up. So when the computer forensic police looked into it, then they saw that the records weren't correct, and that he was altering them, like you said, to fit his narrative. I heard that even some of them he was altering before the patients died, like going ahead and like knowing that he was going to kill them, and then altering the records then. Like, shocking. Yeah. So the police initially launched an investigation based on the concerns of the practitioners and the undertakers, but it didn't last very long. But they reopened the investigation when Kathleen Grundy was killed, because of
she was exhumed,
her will.
Yeah.
And so he tried to write himself into a will.
He got 2 people to basically just sign the document saying that they were witnesses to her changing her will, but they didn't know what they were signing. They just assumed it was something that it was not anything to do with anyone's will or anything like that.
Yeah, that was true, because I saw an actual live interview with the person who signed it, and he was like, if your doctor asks you to sign something, you just trust him that it's genuine. But what Howard Shipman did, what was the trick again? He said he told the woman, he told Kathleen that it was a survey, a medical survey.
Yeah.
And then he said that he needed witnesses for her to sign, to agree to the medical survey, and he got 2 people to, and I was like, wow, the lengths that he was going through, like that's the epitome of premeditated murder.
I mean, okay, not to put anything against the guy that signed it, because obviously things like this it might happen, but I know a lot of times we don't read terms and conditions, and it's not good because you could be signing anything, but if my GP did give me something to sign, I'm definitely going to read it, because my GP could...
sit there and read the whole thing.
Yeah, I'm going there to ask you, okay, I'm going for a checkup, and you're saying I want to know it just in case, because I don't know if you're going to take my organs, or I don't know what I'm signing. When it comes to the GPs, or I don't even if you're in a bank, just certain things I feel like you should read. That's all I'm saying.
Definitely. That's the lesson here. You should read everything that you sign. But yeah, unfortunately, he signed a death warrant, really, didn't he? So
your doctor gives you a prescription, and you're not going to read the prescription they give you?
Yeah, absolutely. I would read a prescription, but a prescription's short, innit? Do you know what I mean? but a contract, some long ass contract.
Well,
I'm not saying whether I would or I wouldn't. I'd like to think that I would. I'm just saying, for the guy that signed it,
did he say what the medical survey was about?
I think that he did. I think that he did. I mean, but again, you would trust your doctor.
I wouldn't even sign it because I don't want to do no medical survey. I don't want to be called after I've left here.
Yeah, but it wasn't a medical survey for him.
Yeah,
I
know.
To sign to say that he was a witness to say that she was okay with it. So imagine this old lady's agreeing, saying, yeah, I'll do the medical survey, and he's like, I just want to help and sign it. He should have read it, absolutely. I'm not even arguing with you about it. He definitely should have read it. But I get how he was easily tricked into that. That's all I'm saying.
I get that, and it's not about the guy or to make you feel guilty. I'm just saying, in that scenario, if my granddad's going to the doctor and they gave him something,
like victim blaming.
No, because he wasn't the victim.
He kind of was.
Well, him not reading it, look what happens.
So that's how you really feel.
So
Sorry,
granddad,
you have to cut that
your
out.
mum goes to the GP and goes, yeah, just sign it. She wouldn't read it just in case.
My grandmother.
Or your mum. I think for myself, okay, fair enough for yourself, you might get a bit relaxed,
Yeah.
but...
Yeah, I mean, the onus was on her to sign it. The onus was on her to sign it because, to read it.
Yeah.
Because she read it, there would be no need to call in witnesses. She was already, again, not victim blaming, but she was already agreeing to something that was fake because she trusted her doctor. But that's the sort of power that doctors have. It's like they're trusted in the community. But
Yeah.
again, you're
Amazing.
right, you should read everything that you sign. So he ended up forging her will. Killed her, ended up forging a will.
Well, he forged the will first, no?
Yeah,
Okay.
sorry, forged the will, then killed her. And so when police looked into him, I think they found that it was made on a specific type of typewriter.
Yeah. And so from what I remember, his daughter, I don't know if the daughter looked into it after or before, but I remember they was talking about someone went back to the place where they do the wills, and when they had whoever spoke to the company that does the wills, it didn't match up. They said they didn't have any documentation from her, or she never came in,
Yeah.
so it didn't make sense where this will would have came from, because
Yeah.
it wasn't from their office.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I think the daughter, well, from how they showed it, the daughter, it was Angela Woodruff. She was a lawyer.
She was a lawyer, yeah.
She basically started looking into it, and from how it might have went like this, but how they showed it in the movie, that she went to the person who had signed the witness who had signed the will, and had asked questions, and basically she seemed like the one that was getting the answers to certain parts of the investigation, not the police side, but from her side, like to get certain things.
Yeah. I couldn't help thinking that it was good that she was a lawyer. And she was shocked when she saw that somebody else was on the will, because the last she heard, she was the main beneficiary of the will. So, yeah.
So it said a solicitor, Brian Burgess, basically urged the daughter, Angela, to question the authenticity of the will. And in the will, I guess, Shipman had basically given himself £386,000, which is imagine you seeing a will from your parents or grandparents, and they're giving £386,000 to your GP. You're like, how good of a GP can you be to be leaving that amount of money?
Exactly.
And how greedy, well, not even just how greedy, but what the hell was he thinking? Like, I mean, I would understand, not even I would understand, but I could understand from Shipman's point of view a bit more if Kathleen didn't have any family and she was on her own. But you don't think after she had passed away they were not going to look into this? Like,
Exactly.
So...
Yeah. His fingerprint was found on the will also. But then when he was questioned, he was like, I have no idea how my fingerprint got on the will. I didn't forge the will, but I don't know how my fingerprint got on the will. His defence was very shaky. They also found the typewriter that forged the will in his house. Did I already say that?
No, you said it to me. Oh, I don't know if you said it.
Yeah. They also found the typewriter that he used to forge the will in his house, and he had no explanation for that. So at this point, they're looking at him like a real suspect now. He's not just some innocent doctor.
Yeah, so after the whole investigation into the will and whatnot, I said this already, but Kathleen's body was exhumed, and I think it took a while, but toxicology reports showed that she had diamorphine in her system, which is basically used to control pain in terminally ill patients, and I think that was his go-to of killing patients, was diamorphine. And I guess
which is basically heroin.
Okay, yeah, basically, yeah, because in the, I hate going referring back to the movie, but you should watch it as well. But basically, the lady that was doing the toxicology basically said either Kathleen was a heroin addict, or she'd been given like a high dose of diamorphine, and it didn't really make sense for her to basically just sort of be on heroin as an older lady. And I think Shipman basically said did Shipman say that she was on heroin? He
Yeah,
basically accused her
said-
of saying that she was,
An addict.
which
Yeah.
you know, I mean, you already killed her, and then you're gonna just slander her name.
Yeah, just to confirm, yeah, diamorphine is medical heroin, so it's the heroin that you would get from a doctor.
So what's the difference though? So if you got heroin off the street, it's just the cleaner version.
Yeah, exactly. But it comes from the same. It's an opiate. It's an opiate. It comes from the same family of plants, poppies, basically. Not the same poppies that you have, you know, at
Yeah, it's that. I
D-Day
think
or whatever.
it's like white, I think.
Yeah.
Um,
So yeah, he was drugging his patients. Do you think he was also still addicted to drugs, or
yeah, but I think.
diamorphine?
I mean, if what he said, he went to drug rehabilitation. He was practicing again 3 years later. So obviously, I don't know what it's like to be an addict or addicted to anything. But I don't know if 3 years, if you've been on, who knows when he started that, you know, being addicted to opiates or pain medication. It's 3 years to get himself clean and back to working again. So I mean, how much was he really able to, you know, be clean? And if you're working around the drugs all the time, you know, it must be hard to not tempt yourself to get back into it. And I'm sure they were saying that he was using again. I don't know,
Yeah.
they didn't make it a big point in that,
Yeah.
but he was maybe over prescribing patients and keeping some for himself.
Definitely. That whole situation with Howard Shipman being addicted to morphine or diamorphine, it reminded me of a documentary I watched on Netflix called How to Fix a Drug Scandal. So if you're interested in stuff like that, it's a really good documentary. I won't tell you too much, but basically it tells you from the beginning, I'm not giving anything away, that these people who used to work in drug labs, like obviously when drugs get confiscated off the street, they have to be tested and investigated. You don't know whether it's cocaine or sugar or salt or sand or whatever, so it has to be tested. So these people were in these drug labs, and unfortunately they got hooked on drugs, and they were misusing the system that they were working in. That's a really good documentary, How to Fix a Drug Scandal. But yeah, it's just horrible that people would abuse the system like that. But also, I know he had victims, but it's hard to say that he was a victim himself. But at the same time, it's hard. But I know where you're gonna go with it. But everybody has to be protected. Do you know what I mean? So, for example, if I'm a fraudster, like you said, you don't let me work in a bank. Number one, because I'm gonna rob the bank, and number two, though, because I'm gonna be with stealing. It's not really the same, because you steal for yourself and you get the monetary benefits. But with drugs, it's different, because you can get addicted to drugs and it can affect your health.
Yeah.
So people need to be protected in these environments. And sorry, just to go back to this documentary, these people were working on their own with these drugs and had no supervision. Do you know what I mean? So maybe he was in that situation. Maybe the system needs to be better. So, like, people who are in charge of these drugs are monitored.
Yeah.
Or there needs to be 3 people to co-sign a drug, or do you know what I mean?
I do understand what you're saying, because I guess I know what you're saying about him being a victim, but
But
okay,
yeah, not making excuses for him.
it's not the same thing, but it's like,
not at all.
if someone does something to a child at a nursery, are we going to say, well, he should have been supervised, and you shouldn't have been doing it in the first place?
Yeah.
So, I mean, okay, everyone's being a victim. There's levels of being a victim. Obviously, not everyone's going to come from the same background. You know, someone has had a hard beginning is not the same person, not the same as Howard Shipman. And maybe I'm being biased, and I don't know his life personally, but, you know, I'm looking at it as, okay, we'll talk about his. Well, the only thing traumatic that I kind of know about him is about his mum. So I mean, he got to go to university. He had a decent job. He was well respected. I mean, mate. I mean, fair enough. He could have had personal demons inside that, you know, that's making him feel troubled or whatever. But I feel like, rah, you had an alright life. Like, so I don't know.
Educated, yeah.
So so basically, from what they've said, his mum was a cancer patient. And she was in a lot of pain, and he was really close to his mum, and she was basically given, I think, diamorphine as well. Was it diamorphine she was given?
I think it was another opiate, but maybe not diamorphine.
Or she had morphine.
Morphine, yeah.
Or she had been given something that basically relieves pain, and they said that he was there. He witnessed her pain basically go away when she was given that morphine, and she died in the 21st of June 1963. So basically, people will link that and say, because I don't know where that link really comes from. To be fair, like he saw his mum take morphine and it relieved her pain, so he used it to kill his patients. I'm not understanding the link there whatsoever.
Yeah, I mean, there's no obvious understandable link.
I understand why he might have taken it to maybe get the pain away from him because he was feeling sad about his family, but I don't understand the link between that and
him killing the patients. Maybe he was...
If they were in pain, I'd get it, but they seem to be okay, so...
They seem to be fine. Could he have been taking out his pain on other patients? My mum died. You're going to die too.
Yeah, but but she died of a cancer that had nothing to do with anybody else. Cancer was not natural, but you know, it wasn't like she came into harm's way necessarily. So I really don't understand it. To me, it just doesn't make sense. It must.
Yeah.
Do you think he could have mental issues, or do you?
No. No, not if you mean it in a disability way. No way. No, I'm not gonna give him that.
Okay,
no
okay,
way.
not mental. Maybe he has
But something wasn't right in his head.
Is that not having a mental issue?
Yeah, that's not. Yeah, that's
or is everyone not right in their heads?
Well, there's right in the head that makes you think bad thoughts, but say no, that's wrong, and it's not right in the head that makes you go ahead and actually do those things.
Yeah.
But like, I think you're right. Like, at some point, you have to take responsibility for your own actions, and no amount of. Just to go back to Kenneth, like, even though he clearly was mentally unstable, you're turning the pictures down, so you know what you're doing's wrong.
Yeah.
But anyway, we've talked about Kenneth Skin before.
So when the practitioners and there was the lady at the funeral parlour had started looking into Shipman's high death rate, I think that's when the police started looking into these murders, but there wasn't enough evidence to basically continue the investigation. Basically, they closed the investigation on the 17th of April. I think it was 1998. So the Shipman inquiry was basically an investigation into Shipman and looking at his activities whilst he was being a GP and looking into what he had done. So the Shipman inquiry basically blamed the police for assigning inexperienced officers to the case. After the investigation was closed, after the police had closed the investigation due to not being enough evidence, he had killed three more people. You know, so kind of, you know, they're saying that they were inexperienced and he kills three more people, so it doesn't really good for the police.
Yeah.
They didn't there.
I was gonna ask you before you moved on. Do you think his reputation preceded him? Like, because obviously he was saying that he was liked within the community. Do you think he was one of them things that he had a privileged status within that community, and his crimes were overlooked because of that?
Do I think? I don't know if I could use the word privilege, but because he was liked, he definitely probably thought people would never believe it was me. I guess he's using his likeness, the fact that people like him, so on and so forth, to say, you know, I wouldn't do this kind of thing, or what they're saying about me, or, you know, okay, I have a high death rate, but you know, this lady was ill, she was old, and this and that. He's probably, you know, had enough reason, enough excuses to cover his back, because clearly if they think he had killed 250 people, or it could be plus, whatever he was saying was getting him further enough to keep doing it. Yeah. And how many people was he killing a day? Yeah,
that's what I was going to say also. Several victims on the same street were killed.
Yeah, was it five or six or 6 or 7 between those?
And they also noticed, I think, that the Shipman inquiry discovered that he would visit the patients and the patients would die. Visit the patients and the patients die, and then, like, you know, how are you not seeing this pattern? How are they not seeing this pattern? Do you know what I mean? You know,
because, you know, if you lived on a street and touch wood or God forbid you had someone that had gone to the GP, had come to visit, and then they died, and then you come to find out a few months later, you're 2 doors down, somebody, the GP came to that, from even after number 2, that's definitely giving you red flags.
Yeah.
Basically, there was a book, it's called Prescription for Murder. It was done in 2000 by journalists Brian Whittle and Jean Ritchie. Basically, they suggested that Shipman forged a will of Kathleen Grundy because he wanted to be caught, because his life was basically spiraling out of control. I don't know if maybe due to depression or I don't know if he was having money problems, or basically he committed these things because he basically wanted to leave and retire and leave the country at the age at 55.
Just to confirm, in regards to taking the money,
Yeah.
he wanted to retire. That's what you're saying, yeah.
Oh yes, yeah. Take the money and
Yeah,
leave. I don't know how
yeah.
far you're going to go with 386,000 and kids and a wife, but okay.
Speaking about his wife stuck with him to the end, and I'm like, really, Miss Primrose, really?
So you're married and your wife's a GP and she's telling you she didn't do it.
At first, for sure, I'm gonna believe her. At first, for sure, I'm gonna believe her. Then the old people keep coming up dead. Then, just to mention one thing that I forgot to mention before, his death rate was higher than. His death rate was specifically high, was unreasonably high. I'm not going to misquote and lie to you, but it was noted that his death rate compared to other practitioners in other areas was specifically high. Morphine found in their system. Oh, the old people are drug addicts. He turns up, they die. He had a reputation because some old people were saying, because they were calling him Dr. Death before he got convicted. So, they were like, you don't want Dr. Shipman because,
Yeah.
he won't last very long.
Yeah. So as AI was saying, I think people picking up on these patterns. So there was a taxi driver, I can't remember his first name, Shaw. He was reporting basically, but in the movie it showed that he was telling his wife that basically telling him this and that happened with Shipman, and she kind of just shrugged it off and didn't believe him. Taxi driver John Shaw, like in relation to what he said, like people were picking up on these behaviours, that he felt that the patterns of people dying in Shipman's care were strange.
Howard Shipman was arrested on the 7th of September 1998. He appeared very cocky in his police interviews, and some of his interviews he didn't even speak, didn't even say no comment. He literally turned his back on the interviewers.
And I watched a bit of the interview, and if someone was to say that he'd done that, I wouldn't believe it. But actually to watch it and see that he turned his back, and he's being very childish and not answering questions and closing his eyes, and makes me. I actually couldn't even be a detective. I actually would literally punch him in the face.
Yeah, he was very non-responsive.
Harold Frederick Shipman's trial started on 5th October 1999 at Preston Crown Court, where he was charged with 15 counts of murder by lethal injection of diamorphine of women between 1995 and 1998, and obviously there was more beforehand and after, and I would say there was more before, but those are the ones that he got charged with. And Shipman's legal team tried to get Kathleen Grundy's the case surrounding the forgery tried separately, but basically they were unsuccessful. I guess maybe if forgery wasn't a part of the murder case, they could come at the case a bit differently. That's what I'm assuming. That was the reason.
I don't know what they're thinking. I mean, the guy's clearly a murderer, and his defence team's trying to get him a lesser sentence because of a technicality of a forgery. I just think that's so disrespectful to the victims, quite personally.
I get that's disrespectful, but as a lawyer, you want to win, so they're not really thinking. Okay, they probably know it's morally wrong, but they want to win.
Yeah, I mean, sorry to keep jumping from show to show, but there's a show, this show's quite old, called How to Get Away with Murder. Like, everyone was into it at one point, and I wasn't really into it, but then I recently started watching it. And, like, yeah, it's very it's very focused on law. And you're right, lawyers just want to win. But at what point does your actual moral compass kick in and be like, you know what I mean? I have to do what's right for justice. That's just me anyway.
From what I understand, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but basically, Shipman's legal team wanted to try the forgery separate from the 15 counts of murder, or her murder case. From my understanding, I'm assuming that the legal team wanted to try it separately because the forgery basically shows a motive of why he done the murders. They can't, negate it to be anything else. They can't say it was to do with mental illness or him being depressed or etc. because it shows that he killed her because of money.
Okay, so this is what I read, and it does tie in with what you said. His defence wanted to have the count of murder of Mrs. Grundy, where a clear motive was alleged. They were in that case tried separately from the others, where no obvious motive
The whole case, okay.
was apparent. So where are they gaining? On the Grundy case, or are they gaining on where the other case is? Where are they winning on that? That's what I'm trying to work out.
To me, I'm seeing it as they're saying, it's kind of a bit different to what I'm saying. So if they're trying, say they try all 14 counts separate, none of those 14 counts have any MO. So if all in those 14 counts that he was found, and he didn't steal any money from them, or they couldn't find any proof of he stole any items, they could argue the fact that that could be due to mental health. So if they try the Kathleen Grundy case separately, and that has an MO, they could, he could get a harsh sentence for that. But for those ones, if he uses the issues of mental health, he could get a lesser sentence. So combined, it won't be as bad as being 15 counts of murder with forgery.
I get it now. Yeah, I get it now. For
But
sure.
I thought you was going to say what you think.
No, I agree.
Okay.
I agree. What you say makes total sense. Yeah.
I don't know how the law works, but I don't know. Say if you have two separate trials, are they allowed to use another trial against you? Maybe the 12 people, the jury might be able to. I don't know if can the judge use another trial. So say if you've done in trouble for robbery, then, and you've got another case here, can they use those two against them? Maybe that's the angle they're going for. If not, then I have no idea.
So the way I've understood, I think you explained it well, but the way I'm understanding it is, this was theft and this was murder. Don't conflate the two. They're two different things. We want a sentence for that and a sentence for that, but you don't lump them all into one.
But that's what he got. He got 15 counts of murder and 4 counts of 4 years for forgery.
So they're like, all right, we hear you, but
No, but I was saying that I thought they were going to try him for the 15 counts of all the 15 women, but then the case of the forgery, not separately, I didn't know. So you're trying to, from what I'm reading, you're saying that Kathleen was going to be a complete separate case.
Yeah.
Okay, but I thought they were saying that they wanted the 15 counts, including Kathleen, to be on one side and forgery, but that wouldn't make sense. So yeah, I get it now. I was confused myself. But yeah, I understand.
Yeah.
So it makes more sense, yeah.
That failed anyway, because it was ridiculous.
Well, it's as a lawyer, it is kind of smart.
I mean, it was worth a try.
That's what you owe your client. You have to try.
Yeah, I mean, just focusing on the law. I don't know. That's why lawyers are seen as unethical sometimes.
That's who they're representing.
No, not necessarily who they're representing, but what they're representing. It's like everyone deserves a fair trial, and this is how I look at law, right? Let's just say that I've committed a murder, right? And every time somebody's committed the similar sort of murder that I've committed, that person has got, let's just say, 15 years, right? I don't know if that's realistic or not, but just say 15 years, right? You as my lawyer, I want you to get me 15 years too. And if whoever the judge is one that wants to give me 25 years, then you fight for me so I get justice. because everybody else has got 15 years, so I deserve 15 years if it's a similar crime.
Yeah.
But don't try and get me off the crime.
Come on, you're saying this because you're not a murderer, though. If you're a murderer and you're telling me you're not guilty, you're going to say, get me off of this.
Yeah, I would, and I'm admitting that. But there's a difference between what I would want as a criminal and what justice is, and I'm in the business of I'm in the business of justice. But I'm interested in justice. It's all very well me saying, do you know what I mean? Like,
I get
it's what's right. That's what I'm talking about now. What's right. So as a person who's not a criminal, as a person who's not a murderer, right? I'm thinking about justice.
I get that, yeah, but when you're a lawyer and you got bills to pay,
Okay.
you got bills to pay. You wanna.
What if it was someone in your circle?
It was a murderer?
No, that was a victim or you or whatever.
Yeah, but obviously, but we say this with every case we talk about. If it was you look at things differently. But we're not looking at the point of the lawyer. It's probably really deep, and they probably have the choice whether they want to take the case or not. And because it's a high-profile case, they're going to take it and try and get him the best. No one's going to be like, oh, you think if a lawyer got Dr. Shipman off or got him like 10 years only for all the murders, you think the next man that's going to commit murder is going to be like, oh, do you know what? I want Abraham. That was the wrong name to use.
Why?
Okay, so that criminal there's not going to be like, yeah, I want that lawyer there. He got Dr. Shipman off of all those murders. That's what the lawyer wants. It's deep, but that's what the lawyer wants it more.
That's
so
business. Yeah, that's money. It's not justice. That's what I'm saying.
I know, but blame society. So basically, like we said, he's sentenced to life in prison with 4 years for the forgery. On 11th of February, Shipman was struck off by the GMC, which is the General Medical Council. Basically, they wanted to get more charges on Shipman, but they just thought it was, I guess I don't want to use the word unnecessary, but because he had already been put on a lot of charges and he had a long sentence, they kind of just left it at that. Mm-hmm. And Shipman denied his guilt. He never basically admitted to it. And they said that Shipman was the only doctor in history of British medicine to be found guilty of murdering his patient. But there's another GP another doctor, I guess from 1946 to 1956, he was suspected of being a serial killer, and his name was John Bodkin Adams. He is basically convicted of doing fraud, but how many patients he had?
Just fraud or
He was convicted of fraud, but he was suspected to be a serial killer, but they could never prove it.
Right.
So I guess he had 100+ victims that had died in his care within a coma. So basically, who knows if Shipman was basically looking up to this guy. You know, I don't want to say that, but you know, maybe he thought he could get off with just forgery, or you know. And just to go back quickly to what AI said about the mental health, we was watching this doctor on YouTube, and he was talking about how Shipman was depressed.
Yeah, he was a psychologist.
But
still a doctor, but he was a psychologist, and he was saying that Shipman was depressed. I don't know, but he also said that Shipman didn't display any obvious signs, should I say, of depression. But it's not for me to say. I don't know. Like, depression is different for different people. But he seemed like a highly functioning doctor. Yeah. You know.
And what they said in his personality, he saw people that were intellectually inferior to him. You know, he would be very cocky to certain people, but loved by everyone else. But anyway, long story short, he was a coward on the way out because he hung himself a year later. Yeah. At Wakefield Prison at 6:20 a.m. on the 30th of January 2004, which was the day before his 58th birthday. And he was pronounced dead at 8:10 a.m. and he hung himself with his bed sheets.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, he's one of the most prolific British murderers. His victims are the most. So that's why I was interested in this case. But sorry, go on.
I was just going to say, do you think this is still happening? Do you think there could be a case? Well, actually, I don't know if you want to think about that, but do you think this could still happen? Or do you think, well, because of this situation, you know, they've probably clamped down on their rules and looked into people a bit more?
Yeah, I think not to say that it's impossible to happen again, but because he was a doctor, you know, like the other serial killers that we've looked into, like Kenneth and Dennis, more those sorts of situations are happening more. But with a doctor, I'm not saying it's not happening, but it's less likely. But why this was horrible is because he was in a position of care. Like he was, you know, he was supposed to be. Do you know what I mean? He was supposed to be caring for these people, and he was actually obviously killing them. And so
what did you think about the psychologist saying that he was annoyed with his victims, and rather than caring for them, just killing them off?
Yeah, I actually agree with that. He was a very busy doctor, and
but he chose to be busy though. Like, he can say that he don't want to take any more patients.
That's true.
That's like
but
me.
Could he though? He took patients with him from one practice to the other, didn't he?
Yeah, and you're still taking. You can say, if I want to change my practice, and they say we can't take any more patients. They can say no to me. So if they take me on and they can't see me regularly, or I feel like they're not giving me enough care, it's my fault and their fault, because they can't take me on, or so you decide I'm going to kill them. Well, I don't think that's just the only reason. But
I think he was addicted to killing somehow. But what gets me about this one is that he didn't just kill. So if it was just the killings and that's it, but then the forgeries and the you know what I mean, trying to take their stuff, that's what's confusing to me. Because it's not like Kenneth, where he was a homeless man, so he's killing and stealing, addicted to killing. But while I'm here, I might as well, you know, take a packet of crisps.
Maybe the same thing that Shipman's doing. Like, okay, I've killed them, so I might as well just see what I can get.
Yeah, just on another scale, just on a bigger scale. Yeah. Do you think he was broke or greedy?
Well, if he had that many patients, he must be making some kind of decent money. I don't think did they ever speak about his finances being bad? Well, when in that book that I mentioned earlier in the video, they said that he was planning to retire at 55 and leave the UK. So he couldn't have been that broke if you have a plan to leave. Well, I mean, you can plan anything, to be fair. So
yeah, I mean, this case confused me, because normally I'm like, right, I get why you did that, or I get why you did most of it. I know the motive behind it, but this one I can't really, apart from saying that he was addicted to killing, I don't really get
understand.
it. Yeah, not at all.
And he had kids. Have you ever? I don't think.
I've not looked into the kids. I feel so. I mean, did we talk about his wife? Yeah, we did.
You said that she was in denial.
Yeah, and the kids I feel sorry for, because they didn't ask for that, you know.
Yeah, well, neither did the victims either.
Yeah, definitely, but, you know.
Do you think they would have looked at him differently if he just admitted his guilt? Or do you think he just carried on that whole...
I think it's so horrific, you can't admit it. A person like that, you can't admit it. He's convinced himself that he's innocent. That's actually,
yeah, I think he has convinced himself that he's...
Or not, maybe not totally convinced himself that he's innocent, but me, if I did all that horrific stuff, I would never admit it.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? How can you admit to doing all that? It's like, if you get into a fight with someone and you kill them, you're like, alright, yeah, it happened. You try and get out of it at first, but then when the police has got the evidence against you, you're like, alright, guilty. But admitting to killing over 215 people, no way.
But do you think he actually genuinely thought he was going to get away with it?
I think, yeah, totally.
Or was he worried, or did he, or do you think that he didn't admit it because he was worried about the shame?
Both.
Okay. No.
Or is that contradictory? So yeah, you're saying he didn't want to admit it because of the shame. Yeah, that's why he committed suicide, because he couldn't live with himself.
Yeah.
And did he genuinely think that he was going to get away with it? I think, yeah. What you mean after the case?
Yeah. Did he think he was going to?
Nah. beforehand. Sorry, I thought you meant
No, I meant after.
after. No,
Because for them to say that he's a well-loved person, and but he had this kind of person where he was cocky, he belittled people that were intellectually inferior to him, and I don't think I've even seen. There's an interview of him when he was younger, but I've never seen him how he is as an older person, how he speaks. So all this personality that people talk about, I've never seen it. So he just shut down completely in that interview. So to him, it was just like, I guess the deed is done.
Yeah, he knew he was done for. Yeah, I think he knew he was done for.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mate, if he was in America, he would have basically died the same way he was, killing his patients. He probably would have got the lethal injection as well.
Yeah, but you have to serve your sentence before you get the lethal injection.
You don't have to serve your whole sentence.
Yeah, but how much did Shipman serve?
He 1 year.
Exactly.
Yeah, but remember that guy that I was talking to you about? The one about the sniper, DC sniper. He got the lethal injection after about 4 years. And he had killed about 8 people. But he didn't serve his sentence.
Yeah, all right. Maybe I was wrong about serving the whole sentence, but you don't just go get convicted and get the injection.
No, I know you don't get convicted straight away, but I'm saying if he was in America, I'm sure he would have got it.
They would have given him. They would have said you're going to get the injection.
Yeah, because
he would have killed himself before he got the injection.
Okay.
That's what I'm trying to say. Yeah,
okay.
Sorry.
Okay. So that's our analysis on Dr. Harold Frederick Shipman. So yeah, it was an interesting case to research. So I don't know if you have any ideas of who we want to talk about next. I was thinking, I don't know if anyone's seen the Netflix documentary on the trial on Sean Ellis, which was an interesting case. Have you seen? You know that one? What's that thing called? Those 5 boys that went to the jail. Now they call them exonerated 5. They were the Central Park 5. Have you watched it? Have you watched it?
Yeah, the 4 or 5 black boys.
Yeah, the Central Park 5.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, but yeah. So we'll be back
soon with another case.
Okay, so could you actually please describe this time, please? Thanks for
all the people that have subscribed so far and have tried to engage with the content.
And my new cousins that I met on the Jamaican DNA database.
Yeah. Thanks for your support. Any little crumb of support, we welcome it. Like, share, and subscribe, guys, because I need a new phone. Thanks for listening, guys. Goodbye.